Mr. Doggett of Texas, at the end of the bill insert the following. Title 10, Additional General Provisions. Section 10,001, none of the funds made available in this act may be used for activities in Uzbekistan.
Last word.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, this defense bill has many good aspects, but I believe that it does contain at least one soft spot that undermines the high level of security that our families demand. The safety of our families is just too important to be dependent on the word of a terrorist. Unfortunately, that's what this administration has done in a little-known corner of the world called Uzbekistan. In a desperate search for allies against terrorism, the administration has actually teamed up with the chief terrorist in that faraway land, its president, Islam Karimov. Well before the Bush administration befriended him, Mr. Karimov was known for his rather peculiar habit of boiling alive some of the local opponents to his police state. In what President Bush's own State Department described in February as an atmosphere of repression where torture was common, other favored methods of dealing with differing opinion in Uzbekistan include suffocation, electric shock, rape, sexual abuse. However, beating, according to the State Department, is the most commonly reported method of torture. Another tactic that perhaps Mr. Karimov learned through his pleasant earlier tenure on the Soviet Politburo is the practice of having local political and human rights activists declared insane to stop their activities. A woman in Tashkent, for example, was recently committed to a psychiatric hospital, apparently in part for asking that her neighbor's taxes be reduced. Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty reported that torture and the fear of it may even serve as the primary tool of controlling society in Uzbekistan. Most recently, the Uzbek dictator participated in what is known as Bloody Friday, where hundreds of men, women, and children were murdered on May the 13th. Since then, he's led successfully efforts to thwart any independent investigation. The New York Times reported on Saturday that Uzbek ministries and crackdown received U.S. aid. The United States has provided extensive aid to the very Uzbek ministries and the types of units that took part in this murderous May 13th crackdown. To those who say, well, he's a thug, but he's our thug, I would say that that is no way to ensure the protection of our families. Even to those in this administration whose interest in human rights has waned significantly in recent years, I would say that when you place the future of our families in the hands of someone who can cling to power only by killing, maiming, and boiling his opponents, you place our future in very unreliable hands. And we already have another example of this thug's unreliability. Mr. Karimov's decision recently to deny nighttime flights and heavy cargo flights into our K2 airbase in southern Uzbekistan. Apparently, these restrictions result from the fact that Mr. Karimov is peeved at the Bush administration because they haven't yet spent all the $42.5 million appropriated for the K2 base, and they've just soft-pedaled international criticism of the latest round of murders instead of fulfilling his desire that they remind the world what a big buddy of America he really is. Undoubtedly, he will be much happier with the decision of Secretary Rumsfeld, reported last week in the Washington Post, to squelch a call by all the other defense ministers of NATO for a transparent, independent, and international probe of the Bloody Friday murders. During the Memorial Day recess, 3 Republican senators took an uninvited trip to Uzbekistan, where they received firsthand reports of the shocking increase in Mr. Karimov's violent repression. All 3 of these Republicans have called for fundamental change in our relationship with Uzbek people and have suggested that we reconsider long-term commitments. This amendment will accomplish just that. As to the form of the amendment, our House rules, as we just saw with the amendment offered by the minority leader, where she was thwarted in an effort to get information about Iraq, severely limit our ability to address this concern. Therefore, this particular amendment, as drawn, would stop all expenditures immediately. I have another version I'd be pleased to offer, giving the administration more of the flexibility that it is always so eager to have. But whatever the specific language, I'm confident that the conferees, Mr. Young, Mr. Murtha, and the people from the Senate, can make any modifications they deem necessary to this amendment to ensure the orderly removal of what was supposed to be a temporary presence in Uzbekistan and to provide emergency re-entry should this be absolutely necessary in the war on terrorism. My only goal is the recognition that the United States cannot lead in the fight on terrorism by funding a terrorist. Our association with thugs like Karimov in Uzbekistan does not enhance our security, it jeopardizes that security. We should adopt this amendment because, in short, the Bush administration's terrorist in Tashkent is a security risk. We risk our security by the bad company Mr. Rumsfeld is keeping.
The gentleman's time has expired.